Look, I need to be honest with you right from the start. My name is Krell and I used to be someone important. Used to be. Past tense. You know how they say pride comes before a fall? Well, they are not kidding. And my fall was so spectacular that 3 sectors still talk about it during their breakfast cycles. But let me back up. Let me tell you about the day I made the biggest mistake of my very long, very stupid life. Zenith 7 is, or was, my territory. Picture a massive trade station floating in neutral space, right at the intersection of 5 different territorial zones. Beings from every corner of the galaxy come through here. Merchants, traders, diplomats, thieves, and everything in between. The marketplace alone stretches across 3 full decks. And on any given rotation, you will find about 40 different species trying to sell, buy, or steal something. I was Vaxorian, which if you do not know means I stood nearly 8 feet tall with muscles that could bend Durasteel. My scales were deep purple, almost black, and when I wanted to intimidate someone, all I had to do was flex my dorsal spines. They would light up with bioluminescence, and most species would immediately find somewhere else to be. My claws, sharp enough to carve through most armor plating. My reputation, even sharper. For 5 cycles, I ran the unofficial security on 3 different marketplace levels. Nothing moved without my approval. Nothing happened without my knowledge. Station security looked the other way because honestly I kept things running smooth. Sure, I took a percentage here and there. Sure, some vendors paid protection fees, but everyone knew the rules, and everyone stayed safe. I was without question the biggest, meanest, most feared enforcer in 3 sectors. Then she walked into my marketplace. It was a standard rotation, middle of the commercial cycle when traffic hits its peak. I was making my rounds, collecting my fees, making sure everyone remembered who kept the peace around here. The usual crowd, Targaryen merchants arguing over spice prices, couple of Hiver drones buzzing around the tech stalls, some Quellan diplomats pretending they were not buying contraband. Normal stuff. That is when I saw her. Human, female, maybe 5.5 feet tall, which let me tell you is laughably tiny by station standards. She had dark hair pulled back in some kind of tail, brown skin, and she was wearing the standard exchange student uniform from the Galactic University program. She looked young, probably fresh off whatever Deathworld humans come from, and she was browsing a fruit vendor's stall like she had no idea where she was or what kind of station this was. My first thought, easy target. My second thought, this is going to be fun. My third thought, which I should have paid more attention to, was wondering why every other vendor in that section suddenly got very quiet when she walked past, why the Targaryen merchant actually stepped back from his stall, why the Hiver drones changed their flight pattern to avoid her. But you know what? I ignored that little voice in my head, that voice that said maybe, just maybe, I should leave this one alone. Because I was Krell. And Krell did not back down from anyone, especially not some tiny human who looked like she weighed less than my left arm. Yeah, about that. I approached her while she was examining some kind of imported fruit, something purple and lumpy that the vendor claimed had medicinal properties. Total garbage, by the way. That vendor sold week-old produce at premium prices, and I got 40% of his take. I made sure my footsteps were loud, made sure my spine started glowing that nice threatening violet. I wanted her to know I was coming. Fear tastes better when they see you first. She did not turn around. New to the station? I asked, letting my voice drop into that low rumble that made most species nervous. I positioned myself right behind her, close enough that my shadow covered her completely. She picked up the fruit, examined it from another angle, then put it back down. Still did not turn around. You are blocking the light, she said. Her voice was calm, flat, almost bored. Oh, I like that. The ones who pretend to be brave are the most fun to break. I asked you a question, little human. She finally turned around, and I got my first good look at her face. Young, maybe early 20s in human years, which I had heard was barely adult for them. Her eyes were dark brown and they looked at me the way you might look at a mild inconvenience, like a door that did not open on the first try. Yes, she said. I am new. 3 days now. The fruit is overpriced and probably expired. And you are standing in my personal space. Please move. Please move. She said please move. To me. Like I was some service drone she could dismiss. My friends Throg and Ven were watching from their usual spot near the power cell stall. Throg was Kralix, built low and wide like a living tank, and Ven was silicoid, all crystalline edges and sharp angles. They started laughing. That clicking, hissing sound that meant they smelled blood in the water. Do you know who I am? I leaned down, putting my face close to hers. My breath, which I know for a fact smells like rotting meat because I enjoy that fact, washed over her. She did not flinch, did not blink, did not move at all. I am going to guess you are the local extortionist. You take money from these vendors, you intimidate newcomers, and you think being large makes you dangerous. She paused. I am giving you one warning. Leave me alone. Do not approach me again. Do not speak to me again. Pretend I do not exist and we will both continue having pleasant days. The marketplace had gone completely silent. Every being within earshot had stopped what they were doing. The Tigerian merchant was backing toward his stall's rear exit. A Hiver drone actually flew into a support beam because it was watching us instead of where it was going. I laughed. I could not help it. This tiny, fragile thing from Earth was giving me a warning. Me, Krell the immovable, Krell the undefeated, Krell who once threw a Bronthan clean through a cargo bay door. Did you hear that? I called out to Throg and Ven. The human gave me a warning. They laughed harder. Ven's crystalline body chimed with the vibrations. Hey, human, Throg called out. Do you know what species you are talking to? That is Krell. He breaks things for fun. He breaks people for profit. I know humans are supposed to be tough, Ven added, his voice like grinding glass. But you are what? 100 pounds. 110. Krell could use you as a toothpick. The human, Dolly Torres, according to the ID badge on her uniform, just looked at me. Really looked at me. And there was something in her eyes. Something I should have recognized but did not. Something patient. Something that had seen violence and was not impressed by it. One warning, she repeated. That is all you get. Then she turned around, picked up a different fruit from another vendor's stall, paid for it with actual credits instead of trying to negotiate, and walked away. Just walked away. Like I was nothing. Like I did not matter. Throg and Ven were howling with laughter now. Oh, you are going to make her regret that, right? Throg said. She needs to learn respect, Ven agreed. I watched her walk down the concourse, her small frame disappearing into the crowd. Yeah, I said. Yeah, she does. If I could go back to that moment, I would punch myself in my stupid face. So here is the thing about being a bully. Once you start, once you commit to making someone's life difficult, you cannot just stop. If you back down, everyone sees it, your reputation cracks. Other people start thinking maybe they do not need to pay you respect or credits or fear. The whole system falls apart. At least, that is what I told myself the next day when I decided to make Dolly Torres regret her little warning. I found her in the station commissary during mid-cycle meal period. She was sitting alone at a corner table, reading something on a data pad, eating some kind of grain bowl. She looked peaceful, content, completely unaware that I was about to ruin her day. I walked past her table casual-like, and just happened to bump it with my hip. Not hard, just enough. Her tray flipped, sending her food across the table and into her lap. She looked down at the mess, then up at me. Her expression did not change at all. Oops, I said, showing all my teeth. Clumsy me. Throg and Ven were at a nearby table, watching, grinning. A few other beings in the commissary went quiet. Some got up and left. Smart one. Dolly carefully scraped the food off her uniform, wiped down the data pad and stood up. She was still so much shorter than me that I had to look down at a steep angle just to see her face. That is 2, she said quietly. 2 what? I leaned in close again. 2 chances. You had 1. Now you have had 2. There will not be a 3. Then she walked away. Again. Just left her mess on the table and walked out of the commissary like nothing had happened. Over the next rotation, I made it my personal mission to remind her exactly where she stood in the station hierarchy. I saw her datapad sitting unattended at a library terminal, accidentally knocked it off the desk, cracked the screen pretty good, found her purchasing supplies at a provisions vendor, made sure to stand close enough that she could not reach half the shelves, saw her walking down a corridor, made sure to bump her into the wall. Just small stuff, petty stuff, the kind of stuff that grinds people down. She never reacted, never raised her voice, never even looked annoyed. She would just stop, look at me with those dark brown eyes and continue with whatever she was doing. On the 3rd day, station security finally noticed. Well, they had noticed before, but they finally decided to do something about it. Blix, a Quarren officer with the face tentacles and the perpetually disappointed expression, cornered me outside the marketplace. Krell, he said, his translator giving his voice a wet, bubbling quality. I am getting complaints about harassment of a university exchange student. Me? I spread my arms wide. All innocent. I have not done anything. Maybe the little human is just clumsy. Not used to station life yet. Blix's tentacles twitched, which meant he was annoyed. I have surveillance footage of you destroying her property. Multiple witnesses of you physically intimidating her. This needs to stop. Take it up with Station Commander Vorian, I said. I am sure he will be very interested in your concerns. We both knew what that meant. Vorian and I had an arrangement. He got a cut of my protection business and I kept the marketplace running smooth. No messy incidents, no major violence. Just the threat of violence, which was much cleaner. Blix's tentacles drooped. One of these days, Krell, you are going to push someone who pushes back.
Not today though, right?
He left without another word. I found Dolly that evening in one of the observation lounges, looking out at the stars. Place was nearly empty, just her and a couple of Felixian tourists on the other side of the deck. You filed a complaint, I said, walking up behind her. That was a mistake. She did not turn around. I did not file anything. That was someone else who noticed. I do not need security to handle my problems. Smart. 'Cause security cannot help you. I put one claw on the back of her chair, right next to her shoulder, close enough to threaten, not quite touching. So here is how this works. You have two choices. You can pay me 50 credits per week for protection, like everyone else, or you can transfer to a different station. I do not care which, but this middle ground where you think you can ignore me, that ends now. She finally turned to look at me. Her expression was still calm, still patient, but something else was there now. Something that made my spine ridge tingle in a way that was not quite comfortable. Last warning, Krell. After this I stopped being polite. I laughed, right in her face. You stop being polite? What are you going to do, human? File another complaint? Call your embassy? Cry to the university? No, she said simply. None of those things. I left her there, staring out at the stars, and I felt great, powerful, in control. Funny thing about that, the more in control you think you are, the harder reality hits when it finally catches up. And reality, I was about to learn, hits exactly as hard as a 5'5" human woman from Earth who is done with your nonsense. The next day, I saw my opportunity. Dolly was taking a shortcut through one of the maintenance corridors on Deck 7, probably heading back to her dormitory from the laboratory section. These corridors are not technically restricted, but they are not exactly public either. Narrow, dimly lit, no surveillance cameras because maintenance kept forgetting to install them. Perfect. I signaled Throg and Ven. Time to make this official. Time to show this human exactly how things worked on my station. We positioned ourselves perfectly. I came from the front, blocking her path. Throg took the rear exit. Ven covered the side junction. 3 exits. 3 of us. She had nowhere to go. The corridor was maybe 8 feet wide, with exposed piping along the walls and that flickering yellow lighting that maintenance also kept forgetting to fix. Dolly stopped walking when she saw me. She was carrying a bag over one shoulder, probably full of whatever university work humans do. She did not look surprised, did not look scared. She just stopped and waited. End of the line, human, I said, walking closer. My claws clicked against the metal deck plating with each step. Very dramatic. I had practiced that walk. You have been on my station for almost a week now. You have not paid. You have not transferred. You have not learned respect. Krell, she said, and her voice had that same flat quality as before. Walk away, right now. Just turn around and walk away. Throg laughed from behind her. She still thinks she can give orders. Cute. Adorable, Ven added, his crystalline body reflecting the yellow light in strange patterns. Krell, maybe we should just space her. Save time. I held up one claw, stopping them. No. She gets one more chance to make the smart choice. I took another step closer. Now I was maybe 3 feet from her, close enough that I could reach out and grab her if I wanted. 50 credits per week. That is all. Small price for peace and safety. I gave you 3 warnings, Dolly said. Her hands were at her sides, loose, relaxed. Her bag was still on her shoulder. She looked like someone waiting for public transit, not someone cornered by 3 dangerous predators. 3 chances to walk away. Do you understand what that means? Do you understand what comes after 3? Big talk, I said. Last chance, little human. Pay or transfer or things get unpleasant. She closed her eyes for just a second, took a breath, let it out slow. Okay then. she said, opening her eyes. We do this your way. That is when I made the biggest mistake of my entire life. I reached out and grabbed her shoulder with my right claw. Not hard enough to pierce the fabric, just hard enough to hold her in place to show her that I was done talking. Her hand moved. I did not even see it happen. 1 second my claw was on her shoulder. The next second my arm was bent at an angle that Vaxorian arms do not bend, and pain was shooting up from my wrist to my neck. White-hot, blinding pain. I tried to pull back, but I could not move. She had my wrist locked in both of her small hands, and I might as well have been gripped in an industrial vice. What the? I started to say. She twisted. Something in my wrist made a very bad sound. A cracking, popping sound that I felt in my bones. I roared. Tried to swing at her with my other arm. She ducked under it, still holding my broken wrist, and suddenly I was moving through the air. Actually flying. She had thrown me. This 110-pound human had thrown 8 feet 400 pounds of Vaxorian like I was a bag of trash. I hit the wall. Hard. The impact drove the air from my lungs and made my head ring. Through the haze of pain and confusion, I heard Throg charging. Big mistake on his part. Huge. I tried to warn him. Tried to tell him to stop, but my voice was not working right. Dolly turned toward him and her expression had changed. That calm, patient look was gone. What replaced it was cold, focused, professional. She looked like a soldier, like a predator, like something that killed for a living and was very, very good at it. Throg swung one massive fist at her head. She leaned back just enough that his fist passed maybe an inch from her face, and then she stepped in close. Her elbow came up and caught him right in the throat. Throg made a choking sound and staggered back, then was smarter. He ran, just turned his crystalline body around and ran for the rear exit as fast as his legs could carry him. Dolly let him go, turned her attention back to Throg, who was still choking, still trying to breathe. She swept his legs out from under him with a kick that should not have worked, should not have had enough force, but Throg went down like his bones had turned to water. Station alarms started going off. Someone, somewhere, had triggered an emergency alert. Red lights began flashing in the corridor and a recorded voice began announcing a security incident on Deck 7. Dolly looked at me. I was still against the wall, cradling my broken wrist, trying to understand what had just happened. I warned you, she said, walking toward me. 3 times. 3 warnings. Do you know why I gave you 3 warnings, Krell? I could not speak, could not think. My brain was trying to process the impossible thing I had just witnessed, because my instructors at the academy told me that most species will back down if you give them a chance. If you show restraint. If you prove that you do not want violence. She stopped right in front of me. They were wrong about you. She reached down, grabbed the front of my armor plating, and lifted me up. Actually lifted me. My feet left the ground. So now we do this the other way, she said. The way humans do things when warnings do not work. That was when I realized something that every other species in the galaxy apparently already knew. Something that I should have learned before I ever touched her. Humans do not come from a normal world. They come from a planet that actively tries to kill them every single day. Their gravity is crushing. Their atmosphere is corrosive. Their bacteria are lethal to most species, and the things that evolved alongside them, the predators they learn to hunt and fight and survive against, make most spacefaring species look like children's toys. And when a human gives you a warning, when they tell you to walk away, it is not because they are scared. It is because they are being merciful, and I had just run out of mercy. She dropped me, just let go, and I fell back against the wall, sliding down until I was sitting on the deck plating. My wrist was screaming. My back was screaming. Everything was screaming, including the logical part of my brain that was trying to tell me to stay down, to surrender, to apologize and beg for mercy. But I was Krell the immovable. And pride is a funny thing. Even when it is killing you, you cannot let it go. I pushed myself up with my good arm, using the wall for support. My dorsal spines lit up bright violet, the aggressive display that had made dozens of species back down over the years. I bared all my teeth, showed her the fangs that could tear through flesh and light armor. You are going to regret that, human, I said, my voice coming out as a growl. Dolly just stood there, hands at her sides again, waiting. The red alarm lights painted her face in alternating shadow and crimson. The recorded warning kept droning on about security protocols and lockdown procedures. I charged. Now, I am fast for my size. Vexorians are ambush predators back on our homeworld. We can cover short distances in explosive bursts of speed. I crossed the 8 feet between us in maybe half a second, my good claws extended, aiming for her center mass. She was not there. I do not mean she dodged. I mean she was not there. One instant she was directly in front of me, the next instant she was beside me, and my claws hit nothing but air. I stumbled, my momentum carrying me forward, and that is when her foot caught me in the back of my knee. My leg folded. I went down hard, catching myself with my good hand. Before I could recover, she had moved again. I felt her weight on my back, felt her arm snake around my throat, felt pressure against my windpipe. I tried to reach back, to grab her, to throw her off. My claws scraped against her arms but could not get purchase. She was too close, too tight, and the angle was all wrong. I tried to stand, to use my strength advantage, but my leg was still not working right from where she had kicked it. The pressure on my throat increased. Not enough to choke me completely, just enough to make breathing difficult, just enough to make me panic. I threw myself backward, slamming both of us into the wall. The impact should have crushed her, should have broken ribs, should have made her let go. She held on. I did it again, harder this time. The wall panel cracked. Alarm systems began shrieking louder. Somewhere, automatic fire suppression systems activated, filling the corridor with mist. She held on. My vision was starting to blur. Little spots of darkness crept in from the edges. This was wrong. This was all wrong. The physics did not work. She should not be this strong. Should not be able to hold me. Should not be able to survive the impacts. Humans were supposed to be fragile, soft, weak. I felt her lips next to my ear. Your planet has 0.7 standard gravity. Mine has 1.0. You have been playing on easy mode your whole life, Krell. I have been training in hell. She let go, and I collapsed forward, gasping, choking, trying to get air back into my lungs. That is when Throg, brave stupid Throg, decided to try again. I heard his heavy footsteps, heard him roar that Krylik's battle cry, heard him coming to help his friend. Dolly moved. I was on my hands and knees watching through watering eyes, and I swear I still do not understand what I saw. Throg outweighed her by at least 500 pounds. He was built like a siege weapon, all muscle and armor plating and pure brute force. He came at her like a cargo hauler with the brakes cut. She stepped to the side, grabbed his arm as he passed, and used his own momentum against him. Throg went flying, crashed into a support pipe with enough force to dent the metal, and dropped to the deck like a puppet with cut strings. The entire fight, from the moment I charged to the moment Throg hit the pipe, had lasted maybe 15 seconds. Then had not run far enough. I saw him at the end of the corridor, watching, his crystalline body frozen in horror. Dolly looked at him, just looked. He turned and ran again, faster this time, his footsteps making that distinctive chiming sound as he scrambled away. I tried to get up, tried to run, tried to do anything except lay there and accept what was coming. Dolly walked over to me. Not rushed, not angry, just calm, professional, like she was performing a routine task. She grabbed my good arm, the one I was using to prop myself up, and pulled it behind my back. Not hard enough to break it, just hard enough to make me completely helpless. Here is what happens next, she said, her voice clear and steady despite the alarms, despite the mist, despite the chaos. Security is going to arrive. You are going to tell them this was a misunderstanding. You are going to apologize for blocking my path. You are going to promise, in front of witnesses, that you will never approach me, speak to me, or even look at me again. Do you understand? I could not speak. My throat was not working right. I just nodded. Good. After that, you are going to think very carefully about your life choices, about why a species like mine gives 3 warnings, about why we try so hard to avoid violence. She leaned closer. It is not because we are scared of it, Krell. It is because we are too good at it. We had to learn restraint, had to learn mercy, because without those things we would have killed ourselves off thousands of years ago. Do you understand what I am telling you? I nodded again. When someone from Earth warns you once, you should listen. When they warn you twice, you should run. When they warn you 3 times, she paused. Well, now you know what happens after 3. Heavy footsteps echoed from both ends of the corridor. Security. Finally arriving. Too late to stop anything. Too late to help me. Too late to do anything except to document the aftermath. Dolly let go of my arm and stepped back, putting distance between us. By the time the security team rounded the corner, weapons drawn and lights blazing. She was standing calmly against the wall, hands visible, posture non-threatening. I was on the floor, broken and humiliated, with Throg unconscious a few feet away. Blix was leading the security team, his tentacles quivering with what might have been surprise or might have been satisfaction, hard to tell with Corin. "Well," he said, looking between Dolly and me. "This looks like quite the misunderstanding. Would someone like to explain what happened here?" Dolly looked at me, waited. I cleared my throat, tasted copper. "Misunderstanding," I managed to croak. "Just a misunderstanding. I apologize for blocking the corridor. It will not happen again." Blix's tentacles twitched. He knew exactly what had happened. Everyone knew. The whole station would know by the next cycle. Krull the immovable had been moved, easily, completely, by a human who weighed less than his armor plating. My reputation, my pride, my entire identity had vanished in less than 60 seconds. Vanished like smoke in the ventilation system. The medical bay on Zenith 7 smells like disinfectant and disappointment. I spent 4 hours there while the medical staff, 2 Quellan doctors who kept exchanging glances and fighting back laughter, catalogued my injuries. 1 fractured wrist, compound break requires surgical pins. 1 severely bruised trachea, might have permanent voice changes. Multiple contusions across my back and shoulders. A cracked dorsal spine, which is apparently very difficult to do unless you slam yourself repeatedly into walls. Several torn muscles in my right leg. Mild concussion. Severe damage to my ego, though they did not list that one on the official report. Throg was in the bed next to mine. Collapsed windpipe. Fractured jaw, 3 broken ribs, and a concussion that left him staring at the ceiling and mumbling about how fast she moved. The doctors said he would recover fully in about 2 weeks. His pride might take longer. Or forever, probably forever. Then had not reported to medical. Word around the station was that he had locked himself in his quarters and was refusing to come out. Blix came by while the doctors were fitting the surgical pins in my wrist. He pulled up a chair, settled his bulk into it and pulled out his datapad. "So," he said, his translator rendering his voice with what I swear was amusement. "I need to file an official report. For the record, what happened in that maintenance corridor, I already told you. Misunderstanding. Right. A misunderstanding that resulted in you, Throg, and Van all requiring medical attention, while the human exchange student walked away without a scratch." His tentacles did that twitching thing again. "Krell, I have been doing this job for 12 cycles. I have seen bar fights, gang wars, and one memorable incident involving a Bronson and a cargo bay full of fermented Quellan wine, but I have never, not once, seen someone get destroyed as thoroughly as you got destroyed by that little human. Are you here to mock me or file a report? I can do both. I am talented that way." He made some notes on his pad. "For what it is worth, I tried to warn you. Several other beings tried to warn you. The entire galaxy knows about humans, Krell. They are from a Class 12 Deathworld. Do you know what that means? Class 12. There are only 17 planets in the known galaxy that qualify as Class 12, and most species would die within minutes of landing on any of them. I get it. No, I do not think you do. Let me explain something. That human, Dolly Torres, she is not a soldier. She is not a fighter. She is a university student studying xenobiology. This is what their civilians can do, Krell. They're civilian." I did not respond. What could I say? Blix stood up, tucking his datapad away. "Station Commander Vorin wants to see you when you are released from medical. I suspect he is going to have some questions about your arrangement with him, your protection business, your fees and percentages." My stomach, which was already in knots, tied itself into tighter knots. "One more thing," Blix said, heading for the door. "The university has requested that Dolly Torres be given a formal commendation for defending herself with appropriate force. They are also suggesting that the station review its policies on harassment and intimidation. Somehow I do not think Commander Vorin is going to want to discuss our previous arrangement with investigators. Just a guess." He left. The Quellan doctors went back to working on my wrist. I stared at the ceiling, the same way Throg was staring at his ceiling, and thought about how fast things can fall apart. By the time I was released from medical 6 hours later, the entire station knew, not just my decks, not just the marketplace. Everyone. I could tell because of how beings reacted when they saw me. Some laughed, not even hiding it, just pointing and laughing. Some whispered, pointed, took pictures. Some, the ones who had paid me protection fees for cycles, looked at me with something new, something I had never seen directed at me before. Contempt. I limped through the corridors, my wrist in a stabilizer, my throat still aching, and I counted how many beings made eye contact. 0. Absolutely 0. Even the ones who used to fear me, who used to step aside when they saw me coming, now they just walked past like I was furniture, like I was nothing. I found Throg and Van at our usual spot near the power cell stall. Van saw me coming and suddenly became very interested in a nearby display. Throg looked at me, then looked away. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them acknowledged me at all. My communicator buzzed. Message from Commander Vorin. Meeting in 1 hour. Attendance mandatory. I already knew what that meeting was going to be about. Our arrangement was over. My protection business was over. My territory was over. Everything I had built over 5 cycles gone, vanished. Because I did not listen to 3 warnings from a 5'5" human who weighed 110 pounds soaking wet. The stories were already spreading. I heard them as I walked through the station. Each version was slightly different, slightly more exaggerated, but they all had the same basic structure. Krell picked a fight with a human. Krell lost. Badly. Krell got what he deserved. By the next cycle, beings from other stations were messaging friends on Zenith 7, asking if the stories were true. By the cycle after that, the story had spread to 3 sectors. My name, which used to inspire fear, had become a punchline. I spent another 2 days in the medical bay because my wrist required follow-up surgery. The pins were not setting correctly. Something about Vexorian bone density and human-induced trauma. The doctors seemed fascinated. I was less enthusiastic. Lying in that medical pod pumped full of painkillers and regret, I had a lot of time to think about choices, about warnings, about why a species from a Class 12 Deathworld bothers to give warnings at all. See, most predators do not warn. They just attack. It is more efficient, more effective. The element of surprise is a massive advantage in any fight. But humans warn. They tell you to stop. They tell you to walk away. They give you 1 chance, then 2, then 3, and I thought, in my infinite stupidity, that the warnings meant weakness, meant hesitation, meant fear. I was wrong about all of it. Humans warn because they know what they are capable of. They warn because they have spent thousands of years learning to control instincts that would terrify most spacefaring species. They warn because their ancestors survived everything their nightmare planet could throw at them. Survived predators that make me look like a pet. Survived disasters that would wipe out entire civilizations. They warn because they are trying to be better than their history, better than their nature, better than the apex predators they evolved from. And when you ignore those warnings, when you push past 1 and 2 and 3, you are not dealing with a civilized being anymore. You are dealing with 10,000 generations of survival instinct wrapped in a frame that can operate in gravity that would crush most species. Dolly Torres walked through the station after our encounter like nothing had happened. I saw her from my medical pod window. She was in the marketplace, the same marketplace I used to control, browsing the same fruit vendor, buying supplies, chatting with other students. But something had changed. Beings gave her space now. Not hostile space. Respectful space. The kind of distance you give something dangerous that has proven it can choose mercy. The vendors nodded to her. Station security greeted her by name. Even the Tigerian merchants who hate everyone seemed to go out of their way to offer her good prices. She had become what I pretended to be. Someone respected not through fear but through demonstrated capability and restraint. Commander Vorin did cancel our arrangement. Also suggested very strongly that I might be happier on a different station. Far from Zenith 7. Far from his jurisdiction. Far from any potential investigations into protection rackets and unauthorized security operations. I took his suggestion. My transfer request went through in record time. Funny how fast bureaucracy moves when everyone wants you gone. On my last day, I saw Dolly one final time. She was in the observation lounge again, looking out at the stars, same spot where I had threatened her what felt like a lifetime ago. I did not approach, did not speak, just watched from across the deck. She knew I was there. I could tell by the way she shifted her weight, the way her posture changed slightly. But she did not turn around, did not acknowledge me, just kept looking at the stars, peaceful and calm. That was my last image of Zenith 7, a human woman, small and quiet and unassuming, who had dismantled my entire world with her bare hands because I was too stupid and too proud to listen to 3 simple warnings. So now, I am on a transport heading to a station in the Outer Rim, a place where nobody knows my name or my reputation, starting over, starting from nothing. And if I ever ever encounter another human, no matter where or when or why, and they give me a warning, I will listen. I will walk away. I will remember that mercy is not weakness. And I will remember that when a Deathworlder tells you to stop, it is not because they cannot handle you. It is because they are trying very, very hard not to. That is my story. That is my lesson. That is what I learned when I laughed at a warning from Dolly Torres and then vanished in every way that mattered, in the smoke of my own burning pride. Do not be like me. Listen to the warnings, because you only get 3.